the way the challenge is set up is that the first round we were taking on Rip City Baseball. I don't know where they're based out of, but from our 10 hitters, between our 10 hitters and their 10 hitters, we had to record the best on-plane efficiency score, which is really just, being able to, it sounds like what it says, get on plane with the baseball, stay through the baseball. So we scored pretty high. We ended up getting past the first round with them. So tomorrow we take on, Kelson, are you there?
Yeah, Next Level Baseball. They're up here in Florida. They're like an hour from me.
Okay. So Kelson's in the Tampa area for
yeah,
for the Florida coaches on here. So yeah, we take on Next Level Baseball to hopefully score a higher connection score for them. So this is all analytics that's drawn up through the blast motion technology, and it's easy to kind of after you put all those analytics together, you can kind of draw a picture of what a hitter's swing can look like, and be able to really offer effective online remote coaching based on those analytics. So, and what we've done with I'm trying to let Phil in, what we've done with our hitters, and what we're going to start doing a little bit more, is actually Coach Brian Billings is actually going to lead us through some weekly drills to help us, kind of improve our hitters from a remote coaching standpoint. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to completely transform your guys, but just some added guidance for hitters that are participating in the blast motion program with us. So want to thank Bills for doing that as well. Trying to get these guys in. So Billings, thanks again, man.
Yeah. So the drills, the drill progression showed up on Blast Connect, Joe, and the guys were able to access those.
It did, and actually, I think Phil's here too, and he's going to be helping out a little bit with this as well.
Okay.
So we just gotta, get the right people involved. Yeah, they're definitely the right people. So.
Hey, Coach Phil.
I don't know if you can say anything.
No worries.
I can. Hey, Coach Billings.
How you
Loved
doing?
last week. Enjoyed it. Looking
Good.
forward to today.
Thank you. Well, I know Joe already started talking about on-plane efficiency, and we're going to talk about that towards the end. I'll just kind of share my screen here with their – you have to enable my screen sharing, Joe.
Okay, let me go to you.
It says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay.
Probably from all the porn that Carlos likes to put on these things.
That's great. Glad we're recording this.
oh God.
Okay, let me see here. I'm just going to make you the host then.
All right.
All right.
So I got to let people in then, I think.
Yeah, let me see here. Maybe there's a way I can do this from here. Allow screen share. Is there anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't find it.
Go to participants and then.
So I'm there.
And then, is there a more button by my name?
There is a more button.
Can you make me you might have to make me the host.
Stop video, spotlight video, make host, allow record, rename, put in waiting room. So I'll just make you the host.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. There you go.
All right, let me move the screen up. Shoot. Oh, well. All right, so I guess for me, this is my fourth session, but I know that, Joe, you did a couple before I started, but just to kind of review, the last two sessions were really mechanical sessions. We talked a lot about, on session 2, we talked about the stance, pre-pitch move, launch position, and then last week swing phase. So talked about barrel depth, introduced attack angle, and talked about some of those blast sensor metrics. And then today I wanted to talk, it's a little bit more like skill development theory. So it's, bear with me on it a little bit. I think it's important information for us to know. And then we'll talk a little bit about the data and how to reverse engineer the swings that we want. So what do we need to know about skill development? So what is skill development? How do we develop a skill? What determines someone's ability to form a movement solution? And how can we apply skill development theory to hitting? So these are some questions that I think we should all ask about developing hitters. So moving on, so skill development is a personal struggle to assemble successful coordination solutions to a given movement problem. Learning is a gradual process that occurs over many performance attempts. So this is the key piece of this. Learners produce consistent outcomes by interacting effectively with their environment, detecting important information and timing their responses appropriately. So then skill development, or another way of talking about skill development, is skill adaptation, should be viewed as bringing functional relationship between the learner and their environment. So, you improve when the relationship becomes more functional. So when you're interacting with the environment and that becomes more functional, then you would be deemed to be more skillful. So I want to play this video for you. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Let's make sure this volume is on. But this is a skateboarder who's trying to figure out how to go from one skateboard to another and then back to the original skateboard.
You had fun with this one.
I did.
Where did you find this video?
On a skill development Twitter web thing.
Oh.
You did it.
You did it. Not without a lot of failure though, right? I think the point of me showing this video to you guys is to show you that, this kid or this person is not receiving a lot of coaching, right? He's not receiving a lot of internal cues. He's basically just trying to let the environment and figure it out on his own. So it brings into the light the idea of self-organization, which is a system's capacity to use environmental energy to spontaneously achieve states of functional organization. Self-organizing systems have a propensity for pattern formation under constraints, okay? So as we move forward into the idea of constraints, when things go wrong, okay, the learner adapts. So the learner is constantly adapting. So as constraints are introduced, they're central to the self-organization process in human beings. There's three kinds of constraints. There's organismic, environmental, and task constraints. I'm not going to get into all those three and define them for you, but essentially I think coaches should see themselves as environment designers or learning designers. And the idea would be that, as coaches, we design a drill that constrains the athlete, and we assign specific tasks, specific focuses or goals for the drill, and then the athlete needs to beat the drill, and allow for self-organization and guided self-discovery. It's a really important concept when it comes to skill development. Something that I think that in my program, we figured some stuff out the last couple years. I mean, our statistics went through the roof offensively, and I think a lot of it just has to do with the environment that we're creating in practice for our hitters. So, and that brings me to the idea of representative design. So I think as coaches, our goal is to create learning environments that closely resemble the game. Okay, and I think, you know, a lot of old school coaches, and I used to be this way. I used to get frustrated when my players would struggle in practice. You know, we'd be so what we would do then, or what I would do, is create an environment where, you know, they would have a lot of success in practice. You know, a lot of, you know, cookie BP right down the middle, 45-mile-an-hour BP, and see how far you can hit it. And then when I sort of flipped that around and started challenging my hitters in practice with constraints, our success went through the roof. So I think that you should kind of try to target that struggle, you know, of that sweet spot of motor learning, where it's not too hard to where all you do is fail, and it's not too easy to where all they do is have success. So the rule of thumb for me is 30% success rate. Okay, that's kind of the growth zone where hitters are going to be improving. So we try to create an environment in practice that's pretty difficult, and that with that, there's going to be a lot of failure. And I think so that idea of safe uncertainty, where the hitter is safe from, you know, bodily injury, but he's also in an environment where he doesn't know what's going to happen, right? I mean, you're facing a guy throwing mixed BP at 45 feet, or you're facing multiple pitching machines where one is set up as a fastball and the other one is a breaking ball, a double hack attack scenario. So we try to create that safe uncertainty in practice as much as we can, so that our hitters can feel more comfortable in the game. You know, in a game, I mean, you're trying to face 85 to 90, and then you go from practice where all you're doing is facing 40-mile-an-hour cookie BP, and you're not getting much out of that. So, so we want our hitters kind of to buy into this failure idea, the growth zone idea, and bear down and just work the problem in practice. Some players come into our program and they might be a little, you know, they're not used to that kind of adversity and having to deal with that kind of adversity in practice, and they struggle with it a little bit. So it takes a little bit of encouragement and just explaining why we're practicing the way we are for them to buy in. But we really want them to work the problem and just to get after it every day and to do what they can. And then there's the idea of external versus internal focus. We talked about this already, but it's super important that the hitter, even though we've talked a lot about mechanics and we're going to talk about data today, when they're trying to, you know, compete against, you know, a guy, maybe you're doing live at bats, or you're doing mixed BP, or you're doing velocity BP out of a machine, they've got to keep their focus external. They can't, you know, try to create a certain data point, you know, or try to feel a certain mechanic in that setting. It needs to be all about keeping the focus on, you know, some sort of target, you know, maybe it's the baseball or hitting the ball over the center field fence. But whatever it is, it needs to be external and not internal. Is Eric on the call, Joe? Or do you have anything?
He wasn't on there. That's what I was saying. If you want to check, I know somebody had messaged me, said they're trying to get in. But I don't know if Eric's trying to get in as well. So
okay, I just admitted a couple guys, Coach Bill and somebody else. Coach Bill and somebody else, but not Eric so far. Any questions so far? Joe, you got anything to add on this so far?
no, just listening in and wanted to I think that just kind of setting the preface for what we're going to get into is good.
Okay, so, and that brings in the idea of adjustability. And I used to think about adjustability as, from a hitting standpoint, like, okay, you're going to sit fastball and adjust off of that, right? That was kind of in my mind what I thought adjustability meant. And I think that in the micro sense makes sense, but in the more macro sense, I think adjustability is basically your ability to adapt to different environments. So if you create different movement patterns, different angles, different shapes in practice for your hitters, then I think they become more adaptable. They become more adjustable. And then you put them into a game and they're not really phased by that. They're in an adaptive state, and they're physically skilled. Their functionality increases, and they're emotionally switched on, and they're psychologically switched on. And the biggest thing that I've noticed with our guys is they become battle hardened. Okay, because they're facing velo every single day in practice, because they're facing pretty adverse environments, it toughens them a little bit, and then they go into a tougher, they go into a game where we're trying to win, and they're comfortable because they've done that every day in practice. So these are some of the constraints that we use. These bats here, these wood ones on the far left are long bats. So I think the shortest one is like 35 inches. Longest one I think is 37. We got some heavy bats. We got the Driveline speed trainers. Love short bats for one-handed work. We even do some two-handed short bat stuff. We got some plyo balls that are really great. We've talked about the depth ladder drill that we do a lot. Those are really great drills. We got some wiffle ball bats here for some drills that we like to do. There's some boards up at the top for different drills, different constraints. And then just these are some of our things that we do in our practices. I'm not sure if but we got at the top left, we got a double hack where the front hack attack, the junior hack, is set up to a breaking ball. The top one's set up to a fastball, and they're bunting. Right here in the middle top, looks like we just got fastballs out of the machine. But you can't really see it, but there's a string that's running from one screen at third base, running all the way to another screen over at first base. And that is basically, I don't know if you guys heard of like the Great Wall of ground balls or whatever, but it's the same concept. It's basically a launch angle string. So we want our hitters to hit everything over that string. And it's just a yellow string that runs across the entire diamond. The one on the upper right, we got a double, looks like that's angle BP. So you got one machine kind of coming out of shortstop, the other one coming out of second base. So there's just a bunch of different drills here. The bottom right is a heavy long bat. It's probably like a 37-inch, like 34-ounce bat. And then bottom and center, the hitter is swinging those plyo balls with his game bat, but he's got strobe glasses on. So we're constraining his vision. So there's just a bunch of things that we like to do at Pacific to constrain our athletes to put them in a position to be successful. We've kind of already gone over this, but here's some visual constraints. We do some wall ball stuff with strobe glasses. This hitter is on deck. He's got some strobe glasses on. So mentioned this kind of already, but coaches and players should seek training environments which bring about the desired skill adaptation. So you need to feed the flaw. If you're a hitter that has a tough time pulling the ball in the air, well, feed inside all day long with a velo machine, and eventually your body's gonna figure out a way to hit that ball in the air to the pull side. So it's kind of a driving concept for us is we really want to identify things that our players aren't very good at, and then just feed that flaw and really try to develop that part of their game. But some of the things that we do is velo with 3-wheel machines. We'll set up a short box, which is basically just the coach is throwing BP, but it's really short, and they're mixing pitches. So they're basically taking the hitter through at bats. So they're forced to make that decision, right? I mean, that's the thing is we gotta everything that we do as coaches has to put our hitters in a position where they have to make a decision, whether or not they want to swing or take the pitch. And so we try to set that up for them. Mixed BP, like I said, angles, different shapes, and then swinging with different implements. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of a big picture theory on skill development. And now we kind of go into some technology ideas. Any questions on the constraint-led approach, though, before we move on?
No, but I think that just to kind of add in, I think that's something where I watch guys hit pretty regularly, and how they, and this is just kind of off topic, but kind of not, just how they set up the tee when they're hitting. It's always in the same spot where they're comfortable, and they're going to get the results they want. They never really move the tee around. They never really, so like you were saying, feed the flaw. It's really hard to do that when you're always, getting perfect feeds down the middle and front toss, or setting the tee up down the middle all the time. I ask our guys to at least train with heavy bats. Most of the time it goes in one ear and out the other, so just because they don't want to feel that that lack of success during those, but it's
so
where we just need to not really worry about that lack of success, when we're trying something new.
Definitely. And just understand the end goal, right? We want to be successful in the games, that's what really matters, right? We want to perform on game day, and whether or not we can, hit the machine, when it's coming in at 90 miles an hour with high spin rate. I mean, it's tough to do, but you got to just keep trying to find a way. So, so good. Anything else, or can we move on here? Let's move on to using tech.
Yeah.
So we use technology for two reasons. We use it to analyze our swings, and we also use it for ball tracking. So you got your strength and mobility assessments that definitely plays into a hitter's ability to swing the bat, or perform a certain aspect of a swing that you want them to do. They might not have the mobility that they need in their thoracic spine or their pelvis. So you got to definitely work on strength and mobility and assess where they're at, because that could be getting in their way. But other than that, bat sensors, K-vest, force plate, high-speed camera. Obviously, we can't afford all these things, but at Pacific, we have a few bat sensors that we use from a swing analysis standpoint. And then we also have a high-speed camera that we use. But the other stuff is the K-vest is a dream that hopefully in the next 5 or 6 years I'll be able to get. But and then ball tracking technology. So the easiest way to track batted ball profile is with the pocket radar. You can just use that to measure exit speed. But we have a hitting Rapsodo, which looks at launch angle, looks at exit speed, looks at spin off the bat. It looks at distance and exit direction. So there's a lot of information, and we'll kind of get into that here in a little bit. But hit tracks is another thing that we don't have that's pretty expensive, TrackMan, and then MLB uses Hawkeye. So those are just some examples of some tech. So the hitting test retest model, I think there are 4 key aspects of it. First is collecting meaningful data. So doing an assessment, deciding what you want to record or track, and then just diving right in. Second part of it is analyzing that data and providing clear goals to the player. So having a meeting with that player and talking about what you see, where we need to go, and then retesting. So every couple weeks we retest every 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes if we're in the middle of a season, it might be every 3 to 4 weeks, but we really try to do it, every couple weeks if we can. And then coaching and communication. So having some swing design sessions with your players where you're assigning certain drills and explaining to them, where you want to go with their swing. So those are the 4 key aspects of the test retest model. And the goal is to give athletes feedback on their swings. Yeah, right. Like they want to, know what their body is doing, but then also pairing that with the batted ball data. So, it's one thing to know what your body's doing, but then to see how it connects with the outcome is, I think, really, really important. So if you have the ability to do that, it's good to do. Some recommendations, decide what you want to track. There's a lot of different, metrics that you can focus on with Blast. And then just start tracking stuff. A bat sensor is a really great place to start. The ball tracking technology can be pretty expensive, but there's cheaper ways to go about it. What's up, dude? I'm kind of in the middle of something. So exit speed, pocket radar is a good one, cheaper way to do it, or you can track hard hit with a simple plus minus. So you don't have to necessarily have, a hitting Rapsodo or a radar gun to do this. It could just be, whether or not they hit the ball hard, and a little bit more subjective, obviously, but there's ways around that. And then involve the athlete in making sense of the data. I think this is really a huge part of it. And it's something where our guys are always constantly talking about hitting and talking about how that, the data, where to go with the data and how to interpret the data and stuff like that. So what's actually happening in their swing. And so the more you can talk with the athletes about it, the better, in my opinion. So what should we track in terms of batted ball data? I think exit velo and launch angle are two of the most the best things to look at in terms of batted ball data. It's funny, you hear like people complain about, I'm not into this launch angle stuff, and I don't really like these launch angle swings. I'm old school. Well, launch angle is not a swing. It's a way of measuring what the ball is doing off the bat. So I think if you're against launch angle, you're just against measuring what the ball is doing off your bat. So it's really good data to have. It helps understand where you're. For example, I have a guy on my team. He hits the ball on average like in the mid 80s, which is pretty good for a guy at our level. So his average exit velo is in the mid 80s, but his average launch angle is, I think, 25 degrees. And so he's not hitting the ball hard enough at that launch angle. because he's hitting the ball consistently at a 25-degree launch angle. The ball's hanging up. It's not going anywhere. It's an out. You know what I mean? So knowing what your average launch angle is relative to your exit velo is pretty important information. Because if your launch angle is too steep, meaning you're hitting the ball in the air too much, unless you're hitting the ball over 90 miles an hour on average, the ball's not going to go over outfielders or over the fence. So, and then, the flip side of that is to kind of analyze launch angle based on, the field. Like, so pull side, I'm hitting a lot of balls on the ground. Oppo, I'm hitting a lot of balls in the air. Okay. Or starting to get an idea of different parts of the field, left field, center field, right field, and what your batted ball data looks to each field. So you can start to figure out if you have some things you need to work on there. Here's a chart, and I don't expect you to memorize this or write it down or anything, but it just shows so less than negative 30-degree launch angle all the way up to, I think I can't see because the screen's in the way, but all the way up to greater than 60-degree launch angle. And then on the left, you got exit velo ranges. So it gives you a batting average, kind of an idea of, what a hitter is going to hit if he hits a ball at 105 miles an hour between 10 and 20-degree launch angle. That hitter is going to hit close to 800. So just gives you an idea of, where you want your highest exit velocities to be in that, anywhere from 10 to 25-degree launch angle. Most of our guys, we want most of our guys 10 to 20 right in there, because we don't have enough guys that hit the ball hard enough to be in the 25 to 30-degree range. So,
Hey, Brian?
Yeah.
Can you hold this for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
So coaches or players, if you're watching this, you've probably heard in pro baseball, the harder you hit it is the greatest indicator of getting a hit. And that's really true. But guys, that's pro baseball. That's a little bit different from high school and college because of what Brian just said. And if you take a look at the bottom of this from 95 to 100, other than beating the ball on the ground, right there from 95 to 100 at 10 degrees, even if you hit a flat line drive at 95 to 100, and then it really jumps up from 0 to 10 degrees, that we're hearing a lot of some of the things Coach Brian's talking about, but that's really what pro guys are trying to do. But again, you take a look at 100 to 105 or 105 to 110, those are men. Mm-hmm. Those are, we're talking a little guy 6'2", 200 and jacked like an NFL defensive back. And those are little guys that are playing in the big leagues. So different game totally, but that's really when you hear that the most important factor, the most relevant factor to getting hit is how hard you hit it. That's really true. It's 100% true. It's the most true thing about data and hitting. But this is really the breakdown. What you're seeing right here is exactly what that means. And that's why some people say, hey, unless you hit it hard, let's see what fits you, as opposed to get up there and swinging out your butt, trying to hit it as hard as you can on a line or at an angle. That's where just one size does not fit all, because we're not all, big guys, big donkeys that play in the big leagues. And that has a lot to do with what you're pointing out there, Brian. And I work at this. I hear about it all the time. Big difference between these guys in the big leagues, upper levels of the minors, and guys that are still growing into the bodies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. I think part of our job as coaches is to sit down with each one of our players and tell them or have that conversation with them based on their exit velo, like based on your size, your height and weight and your body type and, how hard you're hitting the ball. You shouldn't be hitting the ball at 25-degree launch angle. You should be somewhere between 10 and 15 or 5 and 15.
And then, Brian, last thing, can you go put your cursor on the 10 to 20 degree column, not the row, the column, 10 to 20 degree, right. Guys, if you can take a look at that, essentially from about 70 miles per hour exit velo, right, 10 to 20 degrees there, where they hit 446. Now look what happens at 0 to 10 degrees at 70 to 75 miles per hour, and how that column, 10 to 20 degree launch angle, that's where you get into, that is an ideal angle because it statistically produces, at the worst, looping singles, and at best, balls that shoot through gaps or get down the line for doubles. But again, that's a narrow thing. And while we want to work toward that, and that's a tremendous focus from pro ball, from the Dominican leagues all the way up to the big leagues, that's not a one size fits all. But those are some very narrow views of some of the things the coach is sharing with us.
Indeed. I will say, and just so we're on the same page, though, no matter how big the hitter is or how hard they hit the ball, we still want them to hit the ball in the air. This idea of hit the ball on the ground, if you look to the left of 0 here, those aren't very high averages, okay? No matter how hard you hit it. Whoops. There we go. So hit the ball in the air and hit it hard.
Well, Brian, you're getting into, there are really few absolutes in the level at which we're teaching and learning here and sharing information. But one of them is stop hitting the ball into the ground. If you're going to be a bunter, learn to bunt real well. But otherwise, get the ball in the air, at least that 5 to 10 degree launch angle. And you can see, what that means, especially when you achieve 10 degrees. Even if a guy doesn't hit the ball hard, 65 to 70 miles per hour is not ripping the cover off the ball. But you can see where that's productive.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So analytics on a budget. Okay. So we all don't have Power 5 school budgets, MLB budgets, right? So where to begin? What equipment you should get? If you have an Excel, if you have the access to Excel or Google Sheets, a radar gun, batting cage, and then launch angle string, and a blast motion sensor, you can really get a lot done. Bat speed and exit velo, there's an extremely strong correlation to performance. So focusing on bat speed and exit velo are two great things to really get yourself started. The radar gun obviously would be for exit velo, and the blast sensor would be for the bat speed. And there's there's ways to figure out the launch angle string if you just Google it. But the reason why I like that in the cages is because growing up, we're in the Northwest up here and it does rain a little bit. So we hit in the cage a lot, right? And my coaches would always say, like, a line drive off the L screen is a good result, right? Well, a line drive off the L screen, in all likelihood, is going to be a ground ball once it gets past the pitcher. So it all depends, right? And so having those launch angle strings, to me, helps the hitter have some, instead of having that tunnel vision of just being in the cage, it helps them sort of see the field, I guess, and understand the ideal outcome that they want in the cage. So I would recommend that if you're going to be in the cages a lot. Obviously, a lot of you guys are from Florida and California, and you're able to get outside a ton, but up here we got to get a little bit more creative. So, but making sure that the hitter is not hitting those low line drives that hit the side of the net, and they're okay with that. Okay, we want the ball to be upper corner, back corner of the net, or even the top of the netting. For that to be, somewhere between 10 and 25 degrees. And Phil, just to kind of go back to what you were talking about launch angles. I know Pete Alonso, I saw this at some point, but his average launch angle was 15 degrees, and he's hitting, 50 home runs. And granted, he'll hit some that are, 25 degree launch angle, and, they'll end up going, 400 feet, but on average, he's hitting those low line drives. That are driven balls that leave the yard. So
Brian, I believe he says regularly his mentality or his approach is to hit a hard line drive.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that approach. Absolutely. Good idea to start with those two metrics. So we talked about the bat speed and exit velo. The launch angle string will enable the coach, spelled incorrectly, enable the coach to track the launch angle with exit velo and bat speed. It's useful to track barrels or balls hit over a certain exit velo and launch angle threshold. So if you define what that is, so a good place to start for our guys would be, hit the ball over 90 miles an hour and between 15 and 25-degree launch angles. So if they accomplish that, that's a thumbs up. If they don't, it's a thumbs down. So it's more binary. It's good job, or you didn't get it done there. So so getting into the bat motion data, in lieu of game data, we talked about creating game-like environments. Training environment really matters. The machine live arm we talked about, T and front toss data will produce different results. So if you're tracking, and the reason why I like machine work or a live arm BP where it may be a little bit closer and a little bit firmer, is mainly it's the attack angle, and we'll get into attack angle. But if you're facing a guy throwing just cookie BP right down the middle, you're gonna probably make contact out front pretty consistently, right? Just because it's much easier to time up. There's arm action. The velo isn't that much, and so that's gonna affect your data, because now your attack angles are going to be more positive. They're going to be, and they might give you a false sense of, your bat plane, where you might think, oh yeah, I actually have good barrel depth, when in reality you're just on time. Okay, so what we like to do is we like to face velo, and now that's going to create more negative attack angles, because there's going to be times where the ball gets on the hitter, and he just starts his swing, and so his barrel's just starting to get down to that hitting zone, and he makes contact, and the barrel's moving down at that point. So it'll affect his data, but it'll also give us a lot of insight into that hitter's ability to get on plane early and have good barrel depth. So kind of think back to the last couple weeks when we talked about the swing phase and barrel depth, getting that barrel, on plane early in the swing. That's why I think, we need to, as hitters, embrace that idea of hitting the ball deeper, but still hitting the ball in the air. You know what I mean? So that's why I really like machine work or live arm BP when we're doing assessments. If you're gonna do some exit velo stuff off of a tee or front toss, I think that's great. You can do some stuff where you're setting up a tee and you're doing 25 oppo, 25 middle, 25 pull side, and you're recording exit velos each time. Okay, and then you do it again the next day. Okay, 25, 25, 20, and you're constantly trying to develop those exit speeds. But in terms of like using the blast sensors, I'm a big believer in game-like conditions. The conditions also, I think, need to be consistent from assessment to assessment. If one day you set the machine up throwing breaking balls, and then the next day you're throwing, the next time you assess, you're throwing fastballs, you're going to get different data and different results. So try to maintain some consistency with that. And then the bat motion data, the blast sensors, we look at bat speed, we look at attack angle, we look at early connection at impact, rotational acceleration, and time to impact. Those are the 6 metrics that we have decided that we value as a program and we focus on. They might be different for you guys, and I'm sure they are, and that's great. But these are the ones, especially bat speed and attack angle, and they're probably in order of importance right here for us. With bat speed being the most important, attack angle obviously second most, and then down the list. Getting into here, this is some data ranges for the blast, and get your cameras out and take a picture if you have one, if you have your phone with you. But it's got youth all the way up to pro metrics for bat speed, attack angle, vertical bat angle, time to contact, pecan speed, and then power in kilowatts. So go ahead and take a picture, and then we'll move on here. All right, and then blast data ranges on plane.
Bill, sorry. How going back to that, where did you extract this data from? Right there.
Got it at the ABCA
Gotcha.
from the blast motion.
The data mongers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so I got it there. They gave out a brochure, and I agree with most of it. I will say that, some of the bat speeds, we've had a hard time getting a lot of our hitters into the 70s. Some of our hitters are, in the 60s still, and they're good hitters. So
Pretty hard to do.
yeah, it's hard to do. But I think if you sequence the right way and you get stronger and you work on your mobility, and you can make some improvements there. But
yeah, Brian, I'm going to speak to this because I work for a company that does some of this and is on a project now. Guys, this stuff can be really frustrating. What the exasperation that Joe just demonstrated is industry-wide, but there's more of this to come. And people have been trying to do this for 15 or 20 years of just segment. This is who you are. If this is your data, your size, your age. There is more of this to come. I guarantee it, because I'm working on it with a company that does artificial intelligence for other baseball and sports industries that collect data. They're trying to make this as fingertip as they can for mom and dad. And that's one thing that's happened during this pandemic, is that mom and dad are buying Blast Motion. They're buying Rapsodo. And so those companies, they're trying to make it as simple as mom and dad can look at a data measurement, attack angle 2 to 15%. That's college. Parents are wanting that, so consumerism is driving it, and there are companies working to even refine that right now, and even take all of, what if you put Blast Motion and Hawkeye and Rapsodo together? All of that is in the near term, in the short term in our industry.
All right, so then we get into some blast data ranges for on-plane efficiency percentage, 70% or higher. This is a little foreign to me, honestly, Joe, because we don't look at on-plane efficiency percentage, but early connection and connection at impact are a couple that we look at, and rotational acceleration too.
Yeah, I don't think I really paid attention to the on-plane efficiency as much either. I just always felt like since using Blast, that the early connection and connection to impact was just going to tell the tale there. Yes. Yeah.
So just getting into some definitions, but on-plane efficiency measures the percentage of your swing where the bat is on the swing plane. So MLB average would be 73%. Rotational acceleration measures how quickly your bat accelerates into the swing plane. MLB average is 16.8 Gs. Early connection measures the relationship, and we've already talked about these things the last couple weeks, but measures the relationship between your body tilt and vertical bat angle when the hitter initiates rotation. MLB average is 92. Connection at impact measures the relationship between your body tilt and vertical bat angle at impact. MLB average is 81. This was surprising to me. So I thought if the MLB average of early connection is 92, you would think that this would also be closer to 90, but it's not that far off. And then these are impact metrics. And notice everything in purple, all the metrics in purple are metrics that are dependent on contact location. So the location that the ball was impacted. Bat speed, the total speed of the barrel at impact. MLB average is 70.3. Attack angle, the angle that the barrel approaches the ball at impact. MLB average is 8 degrees. Vertical bat angle, the steepness of the barrel at impact from the catcher's perspective. And remember from that chart, the range I think was -10 to -40. Time to contact, the time measured from the start of the downswing to impact. MLB average is 0.14. Peak hand speed is the fastest hand speed reached throughout the swing. And then power is the only metric not dependent on contact location on this list, and that is bat mass times average acceleration times bat speed at impact. So we use, again, a lot of there's so much information out there, guys. I think you just need to decide which ones you value and which ones you want to track, and track those. And it might be, we do 6 of them. The reason we do 6 is on the printout or on the app, the Blast app, it shows 6 on the screen. So that's why we do it. If you scroll, if you flick it up, you'll see the rest of them. But we just do the top 6 because I'm doing a lot of data entry when my hitters are hitting, and I don't want to have to go up and down. So, it could be 4, 4 of them. It could be 3 of them that you pay attention to. It could be only 2. You might only really value attack angle and bat speed, but that's up to you to decide what you want to track and what you want to look at. So, and then this is the last slide, and it's just a video. I found this video. I wanted to share it with you. This is an example of Charlie Blackmon where he's connected, and then on the left is an example of a disconnected swing. Connection at impact on that swing would probably be somewhere, north of 90 degrees, probably in the 110 area. And you can see how he looks so disconnected and on that. And obviously the result of that is a clipped baseball. He's not hitting through that ball. He's clipping that ball. So that's all I got for today.
Oh, good. Let me see. I'm going to reclaim the host to see if people have still been waiting.
Ooh, sorry.
It's okay. Oh, one guy.
Coach, I got a question for Coach Billings. Sorry, Joe.
Good.
How much time do you guys spend actually hitting and working on this data? Like in a month, let's say.
So my thing is, so in terms of like training economy, you want to spend most of your time on the things that you're going to do the most in the game, right? And we hit a lot. It's important to score runs, so we hit every day. And but what we do is we hit in small groups. So we'll bring our hitters in during the day between classes. So they'll come in for an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half where they're doing nothing but hitting. And then for our team practice in the afternoon, it's base running, it's team defense, it's individual defense, maybe, that's the way we do it. And our guys love it because, it makes for shorter practices in the afternoon.
Sure.
So they can get out of there and go get dinner but then we're hitting, throughout the day and that's kind of how we do it. And it's been good. So,
I guess if you're inside too, that's one thing you could definitely do inside.
Yeah.
Us in California, we have the option, but as a high school coach, we have about a 2-hour practice. So it's like we set up our plan always before the week starts and decide, what we're working on that week. And it's always a challenge to determine, what weighs more important within the game at the high school level, should our obviously all three elements, pitching, defense, and hitting, offense, should be as important. But and I guess it depends on the team. It changes year to year. Like if we're strong defensively, we might have more time to hit. If we're weak defensively, we're going to have less time to hit, more time to work on defense. It kind of varies. But yeah, I mean, usually our practices are like 2 hours. So it's really finding, absolute, efficiency within that time to get a lot done and to keep players engaged.
I think it's really important to hit every day. I think that it's you get, especially to hit velo every day, because I think it calibrates your central nervous system to where, you're used to the feeling of getting on time to a 90-mile-an-hour pitch. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And I know this might be a little controversial, but I'd much rather have my players hit than do team defense. Just because
I'm the same.
yeah, I mean, team defense is important, right? But like, how often do I mean, we probably worked on first and thirds 3 or 4 times last year, and I can't remember a successful first and third play against us.
Right.
So I mean, you could spend a ton of time on bunties and first and thirds and all that stuff, and if it takes away from your ability to develop them as a hitter, I think you gotta think twice about that.
Just to provide clarity for the players and the parents that are on here, team defense is completely different than individual defense.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you still want to focus on individual defense. Okay, don't stop doing that.
No. I mean, we work on that stuff too, man. It's just, I just think that you need to work on hitting as much as possible, and we'll take a day off every now and again just because of the rotational volume on our hitters to let them recover a little bit, but we definitely want them to hit as much as possible.
I like that.
All right. Anybody else got anything for dollar bills? Phil, appreciate your time too. Thanks for getting on here and your presence. Got the thumbs up again.
Yeah. Coach Billings, great job. Really enjoyed that.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Phil. Means a lot. Thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you, Coach Billings.
Thanks.
Hey, great job, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, and then as a reminder,
Hey, thank you, Coach. Yeah, it was really good.
as a reminder for the hitters on here, and for Vic and your guys out there, Coach Billings is going to be, and as well as Phil, when he's able to begin, going to start implementing some type of programming for hitters to work on and for you to maybe reinforce if you'd like.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going to come from the
Excellent.
items that we talk about on here,
Okay.
so that there's clarity on what you're teaching and reinforcing over there.
Can I
Awesome.
mention something on that?
Good.
Joe? So the workout that I sent out for this week, there's a progression to it. So there's some mobility stuff at the beginning, some hip mobility stuff, and then there's some build-up drills with the idea that you're working up to some sort of competitive scenario, right? Either mixed BP, velo off a machine, short box, something like that. But it's a progression starting with mobility and then doing some top hand work. I can't remember if we did med ball. I think there's some med ball stuff in there as well. So just take a look, and I tried to attach videos on there. So I think if you go to the drills, there's a list of all the drills. If you click on each drill, there's a video there. But if that didn't work for whatever reason, you can text me or call me, and I can send you the video of the drill a different way. But my cell phone is 253. When you guys are ready to write it down, it's 253.
Go ahead, Coach.
Want to type it in the chat bar?
Yeah, I can do that.
You guys are getting blown up now.
Identify, or whoops. That's my cell phone, and then my email is. And probably the easiest thing is just to text me, and then I can send the drill right back to you. And this is obviously if it's not working, but I'm trying to definitely want to try to enforce barrel depth and building some bat speed and just working on attack angle. I have a feeling that some of the hitters are a little bit steep, so getting them on plane a little bit better and just trying to build bat speed within that. It's not that much different than what we would do on a given day, our guys at my place. So usually they'll show up and they'll do some mobility stuff. They'll do foam roller, 90-90. They'll do some other hip mobility things, and then we'll do some vision stuff, and then we'll go into some build-up drills where we'll do some one-handed work. I love that depth ladder drill. But anyway, next week we're gonna go over a ton of drills, and honestly, like, you know, I'm hoping to be able to like kind of bucket the drills based on, you know, what sort of mechanic they're improving, if that makes sense. So like you guys can look at the drills. Oh, this is a great drill for this type of hitter, or this is a great drill for another type of hitter. So you can really assign those drills based on what that hitter needs. So individualize the training a little bit more.
Cool.
Hey, Coach, how long you take with these drills for each individual player? Or you do different programs for each individual player?
So we kind of bucket our hitters into like different categories. So we'll have attack angle guys, we'll have bat speed guys, and we'll have a brain group, which is like a group that is has pretty good data from a attack angle standpoint and bat speed standpoint. So that group, we just challenge them with different stuff, you know, different velo, different looks. But some of the guys need to kind of rebuild their swing first. So we'll try to really like bucket the hitters though, because it's hard when you talk about individual programming. It's hard to do that for 20 different hitters. But if you break it up into 3 different groups of like 6 to 8 hitters each, you know, or whatever you know, each hitter needs specifically, kind of put them into those categories, and then you can assign drills that way.
Okay, cool.
So that's kind of how we do it. But we give our players a lot of autonomy with that, and that's why I think it's really good to teach them the mechanics with the idea that like you can't think about it too much. You know, you have to clarify that for them, because if you lay out all the mechanics of the swing, the last thing we want is all of our hitters becoming super internal with their thought process. You know what I mean? So we try to lay it out for them, but then reverse engineer how to get there and keep it more, you know, drill based, you know, external focus, throw a drill at them, and that'll help them develop. So.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, guys. I think we're kind of getting to that time right now.
Looks like Victor's already in bed, man. He's ready to go to sleep.
What's he doing over there? All right, no. Thanks, everybody. Bills, as always, a pleasure. Phil, thanks again. Tim, you know, you're the man. Everybody else, obviously, you're just as appreciated. Kelson, nice to see you, buddy. You guys have any ideas that we can talk about, you know, going forward, feel free, email me as well so we can discuss some of these things. We could, my internet connections. If you're not able to come up with something right now, you know, if something pops in your head throughout the week, feel free, send me an email. You can send Bill's an email. I'll put mine in here because you don't have one. Because you don't have my email. Most of you already do. So, let's see. Oh, Billings got kicked off. At least you got kicked off at the end today, not in the middle. So, but if you have anything, feel free. We are going to start, like I said a couple times before, implement more programming so that we can all kind of revert back to what we're talking about on here, and reinforce it with the hitters remotely if we need to, but reinforce it with the hitters that you're working with hands-on as well. So, all right.
All right.
Everybody, see you all next week.
Thank you,
All
Joe.
right.
See you next week, Coach.
See you guys.
Thank you very much, guys. Be safe.
See you guys.
Take care.